This might be one of the best times in Rise of Kingdoms history to be a free-to-play player. And in this video, I'll not only explain why that's the case, I'll give you 4 hijacks, hacks, tips, tricks, whatever you want to call it, to get better results with your free-to-play account. And although obviously my main account, I have spent a lot of money. In fact, I think I'm up to over $150,000 spent on my main account over the last 7 years. I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work, and I actually have experience with the overwhelming majority of the commanders in my 2,499 consecutive days played. So let's break it down. First of all, why is it that free-to-play is so strong right now? And actually, there's a couple things, okay? The first thing we need to talk about is that the game just released a new tier of commander, and technically, it's not a new tier of commander. Technically, it's still a legendary commander. But this guy over here, QSH, who I've maxed on my small account, not yet on my big account, I'm spinning the wheel for value, is so much better than literally everything else by such an astronomical margin that is a huge win for free-to-play players. Because you can just run that one march, and you don't need to have anything else in your collection. You can crush it. And as long as you just run that over and over and over, you're in a great spot. But we're not done. Let's switch over to the small account, which is in KVK right now. KVK is Kingdom versus Kingdom. That's the end game in Rise of Kingdoms. This is the next reason why it is that now is one of the best times to be free to play, because they just changed an end game system to allow you to specialize. And specialization is usually the friend of a free to play player, because you can move all in on one thing and be pretty solid at it. And sure, you have to make sacrifices. You're not going to be as good at other things. But this right here is the Crystal Research Center. You used to have to, in the end game, research all the troop types a whole heck of a lot to get the kind of progression you wanted to get. Now, you actually can kind of lock in more with one troop type instead of having to focus on all troop types. So we've got this meta where the new archers are so busted, they're way better than everything else. You now can focus your endgame technology on one troop type. And yes, this technology resets every KVK, Kingdom versus Kingdom, you go to play. But also, KVKs now have a higher troop return when your KVK gets really intense. So the more battling that happens in your KVK now tiers up, and it increases the percent of troops lost that are returned to you. And also, you get a resource return. You didn't used to get a resource return in Rise of Kingdoms at the end of KVK. This is new. A percent of resources spent healing your troops are returned to you. But we're not done yet, because there's this system that you'll get access to in the end game. It's called an armament system. It's a way to customize the way that your marches work. And they, in the last, 6 months or so, they added a way to convert what formation your armaments are for. Now, this might not seem like that big a deal, but for a free-to-play player, this is game-changing. It means that now, when that new commander pairing shows up that's more busted than everything else, and you can focus your crystal technology, you also can focus your armaments to whatever new formation shows up that supports the new hot thing, all right? And we're still not done. Because the developers added, sometime in the last year, a commander swap event where you take all the sculptures from one commander and you put them onto another commander. Now, this only happens one time for your account, but if you're in the early game getting to the end game, you can move in on whatever the new meta is. In other words, you can invest in whatever's good in the early game and swap to what's relevant in the end game. All of this seems really good, and we're still not done, because the other thing that's really good for free-to-play players is the existence of ranged combat. Ranged combat it's commanders that you can set up that attack at a distance. This didn't used to be in Rise of Kingdoms, but ranged combat, when done well, has the most opportunity to trade insanely positive. When I say trade positive, I mean that you will get a ton of sev wounds that you inflicted onto the enemy while taking very few sev wounds yourself, saving speed ups and resources on healing your troops. You need to play it well. They're not always appropriate for the open field, but when done well, there has never existed a safer way to get KP, that's kill points, which is how many kingdoms measure your contribution. There's never been a better way to farm up that KP in the history of the game. In the history of the game. With such incredible safety, okay? You got to be good at it. You got to know what you're doing. You're going to get ambushed at some point. You'll still probably trade positive. Okay. Ranged combat is only with one downside. You get your KP a little bit slower. We'll talk about that later. So all that to say, I don't think there's been a better time in the history of the game to be free to play, with the exception of like if you traveled back in time and the crystal technology system didn't exist, the equipment system didn't exist. Like in the very start of the game, you could get to the end game and everyone was on about the same footing if you got there fast enough. The question is, like, could you get there fast enough as new stuff was getting released? But like, we can't go back in time. So I think this might be the next best time to be free to play in the game. Now remember, obviously there has to be like a downside to being free to play. Like you can't, it can't just be like busted. Like there has to be a reason to pay money in the game, right? So there's a trade-off. The trade-off typically is your time. You're trading your time instead of your money for progression. Now, there are pay-to-win players who will spend time and money. Obviously, you can't keep up with them. When you're choosing to be free to play in a game that has a bunch of things you can buy, like this is almost certainly going to be the outcome, right? But let's talk about the 4 hacks, hijacks, tricks, whatever, to get disproportionate results. And the first thing is like so obvious, but I'm going to give you a trick to it. And that is that you need to be in the absolute best alliance you can gain access to. Why is that the case? Your alliance is going to be a force multiplier for your account. Now, if you're just starting out in the game and you're like, what do I do? Well, you should find a group that's forming up to go all start together. These are typically called jumper or sleeper groups. I've covered this extensively on the channel. I'll have a card in the end screen for the exact process you can use to go get crazy advantage in the early game. That is one way to sort of hack your way into a group that is perhaps a lot stronger than you would have been able to access otherwise. Because a lot of the top end groups in the end game, they're looking for you to be spending some amount of money on crystal technology every KVK to join their alliance or their kingdom. It is what it is, okay? But there's a trick, and here's the trick. If you're free to play or a very low spender, one thing you can do is you can have multiple accounts. These are called farm accounts, okay? At one point, I had a nearly 100 million power farm account. Currently, it is 78 million power. I sent a lot of those troops to Valhalla during KVK, which is the point. So you make a bunch of farm accounts. Those farm accounts give resources to your main account, and they train up troops passively. Now, I've made videos talking about how busted it is to just be like training troops passively on dozens of accounts and then use them in KVK to defend flags and forts where troops are lost. It's crazy. Kingdoms will be happy to have you and may even give your main account sort of contribution credit if you're using your farms in KVK strategically and sending them to join rallies, to join garrisons. It's time consuming. I'm not saying it's easy. There's people that literally try to farm KP off of your marches from your farms when you try to join stuff. Okay, it is what it is, but you do that, and let me tell you, bigger kingdoms are going to be a lot more interested in potentially bringing you in. That is a huge, huge way to hijack your way into a much stronger kingdom than you could have gotten into otherwise, is if you successfully manage dozens and dozens, or even just a couple, but do it well, a couple farm accounts goes a very long way. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, do me the honor of throwing a like on here and subscribing. It supports my channel. It's free to you. You can also join my Discord server, discord.gg/Chisgule, and telling a member of your alliance about my channel is the greatest compliment you can pay to me. Okay, the second hijack is, of course, to embrace ranged combat. I mean, I gave a glowing review of the kind of results you can get. I have not embraced ranged combat, but I'm also not a free-to-play player. But the thing is that you have to be efficient with your account if you're free-to-play. Now, efficiency comes in the form of resource usage and speed-up usage when we talk about battling other players. Because at the end of the day, at some point, you run out of speed-ups, you run out of resources, and your account can no longer contribute. So, to get more bang for your buck or more bang for your speed-up and resource, you need to be trading better. How do you trade better? Best way is with ranged combat and to play it well, okay? It's slower KP, which is important to mention, but like you could send an army, okay, outside your city. Probably can even show you this, right? Like set up, you can be doing your thing, and then when it's time to get out of there, I call it roaching out. You can roach out of there, man. You just go into a city. So when your position is in danger. I guess it doesn't really matter which pairs I use here, right? Use this formation called range. You'll get access to this pretty early, okay? You just roach out of there, bro. All right? And you avoid taking the majority of the damage. So here you can see my ranged army, okay? I can switch into ranged mode. It takes 7 seconds, all right? So all I got to do is have enemies within this range, and I got to be smart about when they're getting close to me. And I tear down my tower here, okay? And as I tear down my tower, I just go into a city. It's over, boys. GG. Can't knock me out. Can't farm KP off me. I may or may not have had this happen to me, obviously, many times. And this is what you should be doing. This is what the way the game works. Embrace it. Farm KP, use ranged. And if you're going to use ranged, I got great news for you guys, okay? You can make an amazing set of ranged gear with gathering equipment. Gathering equipment has a ton of siege stats. So don't look at the color of the gear. Look at the quantity of the stats that are on here, man. And the crazy part about this is that this gear is not going to use the same equipment that you're using for your other armies. So at some point in the early game, you'll gain access to the blacksmith. Blacksmith is where you can forge equipment. Majority of your gear is going to use ebony. It's going to use leather. It's going to use stone. I guess it's iron. Whatever, you know. These 3 resources, okay? Materials. But this specific siege gear is blue. And this blue gear uses bone. Bone is typically used for gathering. This is gathering gear. But look at this. This chest piece, 6% of stats. It's using bone. If you refine it for the special talent, okay, which is a system that exists in the game where you roll the dice, and if you get lucky or you do it enough times, you get a little bit of extra stats. But that blue piece of gear, talented, is going to give me 4% of each of these stats, 8% of stats total. Well, gosh, like that seems like a pretty good alternative to some of this epic gear. Let me find the chest piece. Here's 8% of stats. Now, granted, it's also got a little march speed, and if you talented this, it would be more stats. But the point I'm trying to make is that the blue gear ain't half bad. So your hijack, as a free-to-play player, is to embrace the ranged combat, and you're going to use the gear that requires bones, so you're not eating into your ability to make gear for your main marches. Easy peasy, man. Easy. Easy W's. You literally farm them up with your ranged marches. Which brings us to gem spending. Look. We can't talk about... Okay, that's that. This is not the kind of gem spending that I'm talking about. I tapped my gems, and it takes me to where you can buy gems. Okay, when I talk about gem spending, I'm talking about events where you can spend gems, okay? You got to be smart about it, obviously. There's a couple things you need to know, and once you know this, easy, okay? There's a 7K gem event. I'll maybe put a picture of that up on the screen. It's basically got a battle pass, and you can use 7,000 gems to unlock the higher tier. The rewards are insane for 7,000 gems. Max your battle pass. It's going to require using action point potions to do it. In my opinion, it's worth it, okay? You can battle a bunch of barbs. Seems totally amazing, okay? Do that. The next thing you need to know about it's called double gems. And you basically get rewards for going and spending your gems, okay? So there's going to be a bunch of stuff you will need to buy for gems as a free-to-play player, okay? One is like, probably not Sage's Testimonies, but you're going to need these arrows of resistance, but more likely it's Book of the Covenant. This right over here to level your castle, to get to the tier 5 troops, etc., end game goodness, okay? You're going to need Books of the Covenant. Best time to do that is during double gems. There's also a thing called Holy Knight's Treasure. Holy Knight's Treasure has a tiered reward really early that's really busted. You play it to the 10 level, you're good to go. Okay? You could do more if you had the gems for it, but you might not. And if you don't, you just do that to 10 every time because you get a bunch of goodies for doing so at the tiered reward. All right? Now, when it comes to gems in this game is, in my opinion, pretty generous for the ways in which you can get your gems. There's a lot of ways to go and do it. Okay? Free to play. Obviously, spending money is the fastest way to get gems. You're talking about free to play? That means you got to be smart with how you spend them. I feel like the tips I've given you here are disproportionate results for how you spend your gems. If you have any other things or new stuff shows up, drop a comment, okay? And I may go pin the most helpful one. All right. Now, final thing I want to talk about is hacking the meta. All right. Hacking the meta. We're hacking, baby. QSH is the single greatest hack in the history of this game. He's the single strongest commander. They should have him colored differently in the background to symbolize that this is a mythic tier commander, okay? It's not actually. There's no such thing. But, like, guys, I saved a few reports, and I just stopped saving them because I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, they're so frequent. These reports are so busted, right? Like, these reports are so busted. This is a regular occurrence with QSH in the open field. Why am I telling you this, okay? In a world in which you're going to run out of speed ups and resources battling against other players, you need to think and really lock in on this idea that your open field marches are the multiplier for your resources and speed ups. The commanders you choose, the way you pair them, okay, the equipment you have, the armaments you have, they're all multipliers. Well, if you can't have all the best armaments and equipment, etc., on all your marches, then you got to embrace something and focus. And focus is a way to get disproportionate results. So if you're going to be focused, great news. Like, there are times when commanders show up that are better than literally anything else you could do by such a large margin. It's insane. And this isn't the first time. Okay, this is not the first time. We saw this with Nevsky back in the day, who only recently no longer is seeing major use. Esong is in the early game and, like, skill is arguably, in fact, is undeniably meta. I have a max. Why am I scrolling down so low? The commander blindness is a real condition affecting real people. Anyways, I make that joke all the time. To have too many commanders chat. Esong, early game commander, so busted. Like, did I mention Attila? I think I mentioned Attila. Commanders come into the game that are busted. But you should not be the person to figure that out. You need to be the person who moves in on it after everybody has aligned on the fact that it is the truth. In other words, what you want to do as a free-to-play player, this is the trick, hoard up your legendary commander sculptures. Hoard up your conversion stones, which you'll use to switch armaments. You'll get it later on. If you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. You'll get there, okay? When you're not fighting, okay, you get ready for these moments where something busted has happened. And then you move in. Then you move in, okay? Don't be the first guy to move in to figure out if it's actually that good. You let the whales do that. Even I, as a big spender, need to let other people go do that, okay? There's plenty of people in this game who will happily fall on the sword for you. And I've been that guy at times, all right? So I'm telling you, there's people that will do it for you. So let other people figure it out. You watch and see, and as soon as it's 100% the way, you move all in and you're ready. And being ready is the key. All right? That is the key. Because when you're a free-to-play player, you can't have everything. But you can have a couple things, just like a pay-to-win player can have. But it takes time, so you're not going to get it as fast. And you can't have it all. So you got to pick and choose. And the way that you get a better multiplier on your speed-ups and resources is not by running around with 5 marches constantly, which you may or may not be able to do and sustain for a long period of time. But instead, I mean, I literally said this in the last KVK. Like, if all you did was field QSH from start to finish, and we had an unusual Kingdom vs. Kingdom fight where it was like weeks, it felt like on end of fighting. If all you did, though, is ran QSH and, you know, whatever who you paired them with, from start to finish, like constantly run them out of your system, run them every, like, nonstop, okay, 24/7, not actually, but like pretty close, as much as possible. Like, that's better in a lot of cases than showing up with a bunch of mediocre marches for just part of the KVK. Now, there are times where the momentum of more marches on the field is obviously critical. I'm not saying every player can play that way, but we're talking about free to play. And if you're free to play and you're committed, and you're going to run out of resources and speed ups, then you have to get better results with the things you have. You need to lock in with the commanders that get the disproportionate results, and you need to use them start to finish. For you, that's going to be whatever's broken at any moment in time. Right now, that's QSH, and it's also, in my opinion, range combat is just very, very powerful for this because you can put the attention in to play it well. You don't have to manage 7 marches at a time on the field that are all trying to surround their enemy and end up getting surrounded themselves. I think you can do some pretty cool stuff, all right? So I think this is arguably one of the best times to be free to play in Rise of Kingdoms history. For a long time, I don't think it's been quite this good, but let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are, and check the cards in the end screen if you're looking for more information. If you want to see me losing my mind over ranged combat, and you're like, okay, but really, show me. Okay, I got a video for that. All right, and I'll show you the swap event. Right, I'll have a card for the swap event, which is like really busted. I think this is one of the best times to be free to play in the history of the game. Leave a comment. Hopefully these tips and tricks helped you out. Subscribe if they did. Tell a friend. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.